communities.
Thank you so much for having me. EUGS is the umbrella organization of Jewish student unions in 36 European countries, and I'm representing 160,000 young Jews all over Europe. So also thank you very much for acknowledging the importance of including youth voices in such debates. Last year, the European Commission and the Fundamental Rights Agency of the European Union, on the advice of EUGS, conducted the first ever survey on the perceptions and experiences of anti-Semitism among young Jewish Europeans. And I want to share some of the results with you. 81% of young Jewish Europeans say that anti-Semitism is a big or a very big problem in their country. And 83% think that anti-Semitism has increased over the past 4 or 5 years. 45% have experienced anti-Semitism personally in the past year. That means almost every second in Europe has been a victim of Jew hatred very recently. These numbers are quite shocking. And we can do better, and we must do better in Europe. But no, Europe is not a wasteland of anti-Semitism. On the contrary, Jewish life in Europe today is alive and well and vibrant. But there are a few steps that we must take right now. A few of the steps that are important for our area of expertise, young people, we have outlined last year in a guide that we released on what steps universities can take to best support their Jewish students. These steps include adopting the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism, but also properly using them by including trainings for staff, but also for student leadership, and by having a functioning reporting system. But more importantly, also making sure that Jewish life is not clashing with their education. So making sure that Jewish students don't have to choose whether they want to observe Jewish holidays or whether they want to write an exam. But I think most importantly, and this goes beyond universities, but rather is relevant for all of Europe, we need to make sure that Jewish narratives are part of the broader European narrative. When we talk about Jews and Jewish communities in Europe, we do this in the realms of anti-Semitism, of the Shoah, and sometimes in the realms of the Middle East conflict. When we talk about Jews in schools and universities, we do it in history class. And don't get me wrong, all of these things are very, very important, and we spend a lot of our time with combating anti-Semitism and preserving the memory of the Shoah. But those are not everything. They are not what represents us. They are not what we are. And all of these things are very negatively connotated. And it makes it very easy to dehumanize whenever thinking about the Jewish contribution to a broader European narrative. So let's change that. Let's start talking about Jews when we talk about culture and art. Let's start teaching about Jews when we're teaching literature or physics. And let's make sure that Jews become a part of the much broader European civil society. Because this is a vision of a diverse and inclusive Europe that we aim for. But this is also a vision that is under threat with the coronavirus, but also something where hundreds of thousands of people went on the streets for in the last few weeks. And that actually leads me to my second point. Through the coronavirus, we have seen a dangerous rise of conspiracy ideologies and conspiracy myths. A lot of them, most of them, anti-Semitic. And they actually have something in common with the attackers of Halle, of Hanau, of Pittsburgh, of Poway, of Christchurch. Because what unites most of them, what unites actually almost all of them, is a trident of hate. Anti-Semitism, racism, and misogyny. On the core values of EUGS, on the other hand, is that we are believing that Jewish rights are human rights and human rights are Jewish rights. To give you an example of this, just last week, together with Firena Menka, a Roma organization, we launched a solidarity pledge calling on the European Union to stand in solidarity and to act for endangered Romas all over Eastern Europe. One of the MEPs that actually signed that pledge was MEP Sergej Lagodinsky, so thank you very much for that. But the broader point I'm making, if we want to fight anti-Semitism, we need to engage in coalition building. As a personal example, before I took over EUGS and became EUGS's president, I was president of the Austrian Union of Jewish Students. And in Austria, we managed to get the National Union of Students, which is the legal representative of all students in Austria, to actually ban BDS from all Austrian campuses. And this has now led to the Austrian parliament very recently passing a motion that actually declared BDS anti-Semitic. And how did we achieve that? We achieved that for building coalitions with other leftist, anti-racist or student organizations that then saw the value of fighting anti-Semitism with us because we fought racism with us. And I think that we need to stand hand in hand with other minorities. And that means that we have to tackle structural racism because it's right, but also because we as Jews will benefit from that. Because only in a diverse and inclusive Europe that counters the rise of ethno-nationalism that always excludes Jews will there be a long-term and vibrant Jewish future in Europe. Thanks a lot.